Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing a video a little bit differently. So I'm going to be making this coffee cake, but what I decided to do this time is pretty much stick to the recipe that I found dead on. So I haven't really changed anything or modified anything. So this is more just a method video of how I made this recipe. So I'll link the recipe down in the description. The only sort of main change that I made was what you can see me doing here is I'm just soaking these sort of cake tin wraps in water. So you put these round the outside of your cake tins, and because of the moisture in them, it helps the edges of your cake cook so that you can get the cake out of the cake tin easily and it all rises evenly, so you get a really nice flat topped smooth cake without that sort of darker bubbled look, and then you don't have to chop any excess off the top to make it sit properly. So that's all I'm doing there with those. I'll link those down in the description as well if you want to check those out, and I'll link a video of how I found out to use them from Preppy Kitchen. I have just greased two 6-inch baking tins, and now I am adding 170 grams of butter. Well, I'm actually using plant butter. I'm using the Flora plant-based butter, and that works really well in this. And I am just mixing it on a high speed just to get that all smooth and creamy. Then I'm adding my caster sugar, so I'm adding 170 grams. Well, I actually made a little mistake here, so you'll see in a second that my attachment changes from a paddle to a whisk. I'm just so used to making cakes with the paddle attachment that I had just assumed that that's what I should do, and then after a while I actually looked at the recipe again and saw it said whisk, so I do change my attachment to a whisk. So whisk it all together, whisk your butter and your sugar together. My always thought on butter and sugar is it needs to start turning whiter. So when it starts, that yellow colour comes out of it a little bit more, which is a little bit harder and takes a little bit longer with plant-based butter. But as you can see there, it just got a shade lighter instantly. So then taking 3 large eggs in a small bowl and just whisking them together so that they are all mixed up. You then want to take your 170 grams of self-raising flour and sieve that and pre-measure that out, and then you want to add your eggs 1 tablespoon at a time with 1 tablespoon of flour every time you do it. So this is going to stop your mixture from curdling and from the butter and the egg mixture to just get too liquidy and then start splitting. It just helps prevent that a little bit. So a little bit of egg, a little bit of flour. If you're finding it starting to become a bit more watery, add a little bit more flour. You shouldn't be using all of your flour though at this stage, so just a little bit at a time. Keep mixing it on a high speed with that whisk, and yeah, see how it goes. The only reason I turn my whisk off when I'm adding the flour is because with a KitchenAid, if you add flour or icing sugar while it's mixing, it just goes everywhere. And that's what it should end up look like, really nice and creamy. But now, once you've used up the flour that you need to use to add your egg, you're going to want to take your whisk attachment out and grab your bowl and a spatula or a spoon. And then you want to fold in the rest of your flour. So this is really important now. We're back to folding this week. So this is a massive mistake I made. I added 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, but I didn't sieve it. And because you're folding it, it didn't break up. I had lumps of it left in the end. My cake didn't rise just as I wanted it to. And yeah, it just wasn't perfect, which it definitely could have been. So that was a big mistake on my end. And there I have just added 1 tablespoon of instant coffee that I dissolved in 1 tablespoon of hot water. I think I actually did maybe 1.5 tablespoons of coffee dissolved in 1 tablespoon of water, just because I wanted it a little bit stronger and I liked that taste in the outcome. And again, you want to fold that in just until all the mixture has combined. You're going to take your 2 baking tins and distribute your batter evenly in between them. And then you want to spread the batter around the tins. As you can see, not only have I greased my baking tins, I've also lined the bottom with some parchment paper, so that is optional. If you just want to grease them, that's fine, but I prefer when they just sort of slip out because of those parchment papers. And then I'm attaching my belts to my pans, ready for them to go in the oven. And so you want to put those in the oven for between 25 to 30 minutes until a skewer comes out clean and it's sort of firm in the middle. So you want to leave them to cool in their tins for around 5 minutes and then flip them out onto a cooling rack to cool so that you can start piping your icing on top. So to make the icing, I just mixed 100 grams of butter, and I beat that in my mixer until it was nice and creamy. And I then added my icing sugar. Now, I think this wasn't listed in the recipe, but I did this in a different recipe and it worked really well. I mixed half of the icing sugar with the butter, so I mixed around 100 grams of icing sugar there and mixed it all together until it was sort of light and creamy. And then there I'm adding the other 125 grams of icing sugar and mixing until that's all nicely combined. And the same as the cake, you want to add 1.5 tablespoons of instant coffee dissolved with 1 tablespoon of hot water. That amount of instant coffee can be changed depending on your preference, really. It's completely up to you how strong you want it. I'd say this was, I could taste the coffee, but it wasn't super strong. So however you think you would prefer it. So you want to mix on a high speed for a good 5 to 10 minutes until it's like that creamy in colour and creamy in consistency, and you've mixed all of that coffee, butter, icing sugar, all of it is completely combined. It made actually a really nice silky consistency. Again, I use plant-based butter in this recipe, and I do in most of my recipes actually. I have really found it doesn't make a difference, especially not to taste, and the consistency of my cakes comes out pretty much the same as it would if I was using butter, so I would definitely recommend the Flora plant butter that I use. So I've then grabbed one of my cakes, and as you can see the top is, and that is the top of the cake, is super flat, like so flat. So it just works so well, those belts. I can't express how good they are. They're just really good. So I did sort of dots around the outside and then a smaller layer, a thinner layer of buttercream in the centre, because I wanted to put some jam in the middle of there. So I've done that, I'm just smoothing it out so it's sort of around most of the cake. And then I'm going to pop the other cake on top again. You've got that really nice flat top and those flat edges as well. And I saw this on Instagram. A couple of people had done it on Instagram, and I thought I would give it a go as I hadn't tried this sort of topping before, and I'm really not great at piping sort of patterns or flowers or anything onto cakes, and anything I do just ends up looking a bit messy. So I thought I'd give this a go, and I can't express how much I loved the look of this. So I'd grab a little bit of kitchen roll just so that you can wipe the spoon every single time you press down, and always just make sure you're aiming for the middle. So once you've done that whole outer edge, you then just pipe some more blobs around the inside, and you do exactly the same again. So just press down and drag inwards, always to the centre, and then wipe the excess that you've got on your spoon onto the kitchen roll. If you don't do that, it just sort of drags onto the next one and you end up with it just looking a little bit messy. And I'm doing the final time. I really didn't know what to do in the middle, so I just sort of swirled around what I'd already done because I didn't want to add another blob. So yeah, the middle looks a bit weird, but I couldn't think of what to do in there. But yeah, really happy with how it turned out. So this recipe was super easy to make, really happy with it, and really tasty as well. So do let me know if you try it down in the comments below. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next week.